Broadcasting alive from the Green Room Studios in Nashville, Tennessee, it's the At Home Show with Josh Carey and David Bates, celebrating 25 years of home and garden wisdom. Without further ado, your hosts, Josh Carey and David Bates.
Hold that note as you go, because it's time for the At Home Show. It's a Saturday morning tradition from here from the Green Room. We're here for you. I'm Josh Carey.
Hey, and I'm David Bates.
How was it? 25-something years?
You know,
You ought to be doing this.
I was out in the Opryland area yesterday.
were?
My son Jason and I went to see Oppenheimer at the Opry Regal IMAX.
Stop.
It was.
Imagine.
I would. You know, if you're going to shoot a movie in IMAX 70 millimeter
That's
with
the
all
one.
with all the black and white IMAX, which had never been was developed specifically for this movie and never been used before, I figured that $25 a ticket was a reasonable price. The sound was excellent. The movie, I really enjoyed it. It did not seem like a 3-hour event.
Robert Downey Jr. doesn't do anything for you, does he?
Oh,
Come on. He's an actor's actor.
He's probably top 2 or 3 of all actors. Chaplin is, I think, the single most profound and incredible performance ever by anyone. So yes, Bobby's he's got it going on.
He does.
So, but yeah, if you haven't seen Oppenheimer, I mean, I really liked it.
Did you go to Barbie too?
I did not make it to Barbie.
I'll be going to see it this weekend.
Are you wearing the pink when you go?
I usually wear black, but maybe, perhaps I will bring.
Did you have black
Who is that
dressed
ghostly voice
Barbies
there?
when you were growing up? Did you have did you have a little?
I used to do their hair. I don't know if I had any black dressed Barbies.
By the way, Caroline Gant.
Good morning.
And that is not Austin Lowen. Ben Trest is here. Welcome in, Ben.
Where's Kev?
At the lake.
Oh, okay.
Lake times.
Yeah,
Groom Lake.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of grooming that needs to go on. That's what we talk about with respect to the landscape.
Yes.
And if you've got questions about that, certainly you can put those on any one of our social media platforms, and we'll get you an answer on that.
Yes.
First, we're going to give answers about the weather, and today is a
H-O-T.
going to be another hot one. This forecast says 94. I've seen others that say 98.
Yes.
Heat index of perhaps 108. Really going to be hot today. Afternoon thunderstorms a possibility. That's almost the case every day. It probably does rain somewhere for somebody. It's going to cool just a bit tomorrow, 91. Partly cloudy conditions. Monday, perhaps slightly cooler, 90 degrees, a little bit cooler still. Tuesday and Wednesday, 88, 86. Then our rainfall chances increase going into the latter part of the week. But there's a chance every day. I think they just decide, we're not going to put that in here for a few days, and then because it makes it look like that there's something being done when really it's just a carbon copy from week to week. We will look at the eastern radar, and you will see that we do have a little something happening back here, and if that kind of sinks down to our area, that could give us
ground clutter.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe that wet kind of ground clutter. I'm not exactly sure.
We could use it.
But it has gotten dry again. Actually, I'm okay if it doesn't rain here because we've got a dirt project going on. Yeah, well, and dirt turns to mud when it is profusely. So as long as it's not a large amount, it really is beneficial. But you see, we got some that are generally drifting our direction. Don't know if they'll exactly make it here or not. But this week, I can tell you, we have had a slight amount of rain, 0.11 of an inch for this week. 583 for the month here at Bates Nursery Station. 3372 for the year. And once again, it is currently 77 degrees and very sticky. I'm gonna go back here and look at the relative humidity. It is
whose relatives?
It could be anybody's. It is. I don't see it on there for whatever reason. So it is
84.
It's very sticky. So just remember that. And we appreciate you tuning in today and giving us a little listen to. And we'll try to listen to you and what you have going on, what questions you have about your garden, or the things that you need to worry about. Should you double up on your worry?
Oh, gosh, yes.
That's a frequent thing that occurs.
Should Caroline wear pink to the Barbie movie?
Well, the
Pink
question,
ribbon in the hair.
The question
pink
is,
shoes.
I have seen, the last Friday night I was out with Renee and some other friends, and I saw.
Did you wear pink?
No, but I saw other young women dressed in pink. I thought, gosh, I did not make
cute.
the connection. But obviously they had either just come from or were going to Barbie. But I did talk to a really gruff, burly kind of a guy yesterday who was going with his wife and son to the Barbie movie. I did see a couple of clips.
I've heard it's cute. I've heard it's
there's a couple of
hysterical.
clips I have seen that did look interesting. So I'm not going to say that I won't likely go to the theater. It'll be out
Streaming.
at some point in the not too distant future. But
I'm
anyway,
waiting for Dune for IMAX.
Ooh.
The Dune Part 2. Yes.
Okay.
That's
Well,
going to be good.
that may be a wait. So the strike goes on.
Nah, it's already in the can.
All right. Well, can they release it?
Huh?
I guess they can if it's already in the can. Our editors, they're not on strike, are they?
They may not be crossing the picket line.
Anyway, let's get along with the program here.
Sam says Barbie was great on YouTube.
Thank you, Sam. Now let's go ahead and move along to other things. Gardening, landscape, home improvement.
Maybe.
And all things outdoor, which is front and center hot. So
Hot stuff. You know what we did miss?
What'd we miss?
Good morning, Tyler.
Oh,
Hey, good morning, Caroline.
Tyler.
I was cutting to you to talk about me, I guess.
There you are.
Yeah,
Good morning.
And it is good to see you right there in front and center, as you should be. He's the guy that does all the magic and makes this all happen. When we look good, it's all on him. When we look bad, it's all on him.
That's right. He takes
It's
it
great.
all.
But, fortunately, he has little control over actual internet connectivity, which is what we're dependent upon, anyone who does this kind of thing. So, anyway, we're off to a good start today. What you guys got in mind? You got anything you want to jump into before we dive into the questions? And welcome in, Ben, by the way.
Ben.
Say,
Ben.
Good to be here.
this is a non-waving environment. This is speak up. And with that big booming voice you've got, Ben, we know we're going to hear you.
Well, I got plenty of summer projects going on. Not a whole lot of planting, a whole lot of watering right now. I'm going to build a bed for my son. We're going to move him out of the crib, move him onto the floor, and there's going to be a whole lot of new.
You're going to use earth mix in that bed?
I thought he was talking about a garden bed.
I might.
Okay.
I think you should.
I think as long as it's in a sealed package, we'll be all right and save a buck or two. But yeah, indoor projects right now, and then going out for watering and coming back inside and cooling off, and rinse and repeat right now.
Yeah, it's real hot out
Yeah,
there.
man. For those of us who work the outdoors for a living, you learn to move at a slightly different pace and do a whole bunch of this. Drinking water. Just never stop drinking water. Just do it all day long from morning until night.
Seems kind of, a lot of folks don't wear long sleeves and long pants in this type of weather. And that's
well,
maybe not the best of idea.
all of my Hispanic brothers, they all wear long sleeves, and there is a truth to that. While it might feel a little sticky and uncomfortable at first, once you get soaked with sweat, it does keep you cooler, and
Yes,
it
it
does
does.
keep that sun off of you. So
Bring the shade with you.
exactly right. So
Wild.
it's
Cotton
not.
SPF is great.
But you know what? I've not been one to ever conform to that because
You're just
I could probably wear the long
rebel, David Bates. You know it.
I could wear the long sleeves, but not long pants. It's all I can do to go to any kind of a thing that's even remotely.
Where do you keep your pens?
I don't.
Huh?
I do not keep them.
You don't keep your
I
pens?
depend on other
Your
people. to
magic
have
markers?
Okay, let's get on with the questions now.
We do have quite a few questions
Cargo
today.
pants.
So I know all of you read David's newsletter this week. If you didn't, we did talk about trimming things, haircuts. So we got quite a few questions about that. So one of the first things I want to touch on is we had questions about is it true that you should do panicle hydrangeas right now and azaleas? So we just need to touch on that. Is it a good time to give those a haircut?
Go for it, Ben.
I think that's kind of tricky because I would wait on both of those. Short answer. Panicle hydrangeas, really, you should be enjoying the show right now. And it's a good rule of thumb to prune once the show is over. And for hydrangeas, that may even be closer to the holiday season for you. So panicles, new wood, prune them whenever you're tired of that bloom. If you want that rustic look, leave it. Some of our azaleas are fall blooming. So you've got to watch out. If you have an encore azalea and you prune it now, you may lose your kind of big show of blooms. If it's a spring bloomer, traditional azalea, you would be safe to do that right now.
Yeah, and matter of fact,
You
must do it right now, or it should have been done a month ago.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, particularly with traditional varieties of azaleas that are non-repeat blooming, they have to set bud on the previous year wood, this being the previous year to next year. So if you wait too late and trim those, you're going to be cutting off your ability for the plant to set bud properly. So on your azaleas, probably just need to wait on all of them. And of course, other flowering things that are spring flowering, flowering quince, forsythia, all those kind of things. If you trim them now, you will lose some flowers for next year. Even if they flush a new growth afterwards, it will, that particularly for spring flowering shrubs.
Right.
If you're going to cut them hard, well, I don't want to jump ahead. I think there's a question to that end.
Yes.
So I will not jump ahead on that answer. So anyway, that's all I got.
That's all you got. Well, what about boxwood? So we have a viewer that planted some about 7 weeks ago. They're wondering if it's time to clean those up, and also should they fertilize?
Too bad Kevin's not here. I mean, Austin.
Kevin, yeah.
Kevin, talk about those dead boxwoods.
Yeah.
I mean, I think non-flowering stuff, so boxwoods, hollies, needled evergreens, arborvitae, you could prune those right now. Like David said, you need to kind of get on with it sooner than later because we don't want tender new growth going into the freezing season. Boxwood, only 7 weeks in the ground. You could trim it. I wouldn't go more than 20-30% with it just because it is a new plant. I would tend to leave it in the ground 6 months to a year before I trim it, just to let it get established so that it'll really flush after that trim.
Just shape it up if you need to.
Yep. Just a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yep.
That wonky tendril that comes flying out on you. I mean, get that one. Yeah.
Fertilizer's fine. Do that now versus later. We don't want to do that in fall. Hollytone's great for boxwoods, plant tone.
And the great thing about using a fertilizer such as Hollytone is that it is an organic fertilizer. It does not going to give you a big, huge blast of nitrogen, particularly ammoniacal nitrogen, which is going to initiate a huge flush of growth. What you don't want to happen on plants that are going into the dormant season, and I know it's hard for people to wrap their head about thinking about the dormant season ahead, but the plants need to be able to harden off fully before cold weather arrives. And if you don't remember last winter, I think you weren't paying attention. It was, if only for 3 days we had nasty horticultural
Everybody
winter.
was all confused with Christmas, David.
It was a major.
Don't remember.
It was a major distraction.
Yes,
I admit it, but I was not distracted.
No, I wasn't either.
So
It was a wild time.
all right.
All right. So, another question on the newsletter. I read your last haircut email and wondered, for when would you suggest severe pruning for mature shrubbery? We moved into a condo and there are a couple wildly overgrown bushes we're desperately needing a cutback, but I don't want to risk shocking or killing.
Yeah, obviously Ben and I are both experts on last haircut.
Yeah.
If you see the amount of or the lack thereof of follicles on our heads, we take that literally. Severe pruning, from my standpoint, that's kind of a springtime exclusive kind of thing for me. Do you agree with that, Ben?
Springtime, I mean, you could do some of it in the winter if you're doing like structural tree pruning and you need to see all of that structure. I think that's all right, but spring I think would be, you're going to get an immediate reaction out of that prune. And you're going to kind of see what you're dealing with.
And again, you don't want to cut flowering things that are spring flowering things in the spring. So you, as you just alluded to, you need to really know what it is you're thinking about pruning. So don't just trim everything because you've got your shears out. Trim the things that need it. The biggest frustration and the biggest resentment I had for many years was against TDOT because they would trim the forsythia and flowering quince that used to be down the middle of 440 where there's nothing in there now. Right before they would bloom every year, we just used to really,
that's heartbreaking.
Used to really get me. But not anymore. I'm over it now.
There was one word in that
me at all.
Yeah, there was one word in that question that makes me ask, do you have an HOA, that condo that you're in? And very likely you got somebody that would do that for them, too.
Likely.
Okay.
Or somebody at least tell them how to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
How is it done?
What are the acceptable parameters for trimming?
We had a comment from Smyrna, Tennessee, from Risha. She says, hi, came out for the first time last Saturday and saw your beautiful nursery and got to meet the two at-homey stars, Caroline and Austin.
That's
Two
very
of
good.
the stars.
Yep. And Austin made good on his.
His pledge?
Yep.
He did.
Yep.
He did.
He got him a butterfly bush.
Well,
Yes, he
Okay.
did. Yep,
Wonder
they
if they
came
plan-
out to find him.
That's
Yeah, I
it.
got to talk to them for a little bit. I gave them a little tour, so I was happy they came out.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have another question on pruning. Someone is asking, how do I prune my green giant arborvitae?
Green giant
do we do that?
arborvitae.
I don't know. I've never pruned one.
I don't usually like to, if you don't have to, just because arborvitae sometimes does get a little bit of browning when you prune it too aggressively. They don't really take to shearing and shaping all that well. So if you're going to prune green giant, I would do it one snip at a time on branches if you're maybe trying to even it out.
Yeah, and for my purposes, if you were going to do it late winter, early spring, before any sign of new growth, you could do a general shearing, and I have seen them done that way, and it's quite effective. And the risk of danger of pathogens or fungus or anything is almost nil at that point. So you can really keep them nice and tight, but you got to do it then. If you don't want to do it right now, you like you said, Ben, some selective pruning, if you've got a errant branch here or there, is the way to go. But I wouldn't go through and prune them overall. We've got a hedge of them on the north side of the property here that we planted 4 years ago. Now they're really
monsters.
become growing machines now. They have never been pruned since they've been in the ground, not one time. Only pruning I did is I had a canker on one that I pruned back about a foot below it 3 years ago.
Lysine is good for those.
Pardon me?
Lysine is good for those canker sores.
This is a different canker, Josh.
Oh.
You have to prune it out. Anyway, it is completely grown beyond that and
Ow.
has not returned. So you cannot even tell it now. They're a very aggressive growing plant, but and unlike Leland cypress, which is to be their most common confused plant, which is a decidedly lesser plant.
Because to me, giant portion of that name seems to be what would be the most attractive about it.
Well, they do
right?
get, if you've
Yeah.
got the spot for them, they can get 60 feet tall.
Yeah.
And the place where that we have them planted, within 5 years, it will be a green wall. They were planted 10 feet on center, and they will be completely making a completely opaque green surface so that the neighbors don't have to look, over
You don't
the
have to
property.
see them, more likely. They
Well,
should, why would they want to block the view
It's
of the nursery?
mutual.
It's
okay.
It's to offer and afford privacy. It's another layer of doing something
Okay.
that's mutually beneficial. So
Very good.
there's that.
There it is. Tyler, did you have a question?
Did I?
Did you have a pruning
sure.
question?
He's got lots of questions.
Are you setting me up for something?
I thought I was, but maybe not. Maybe I'm just setting you up for confusion.
Maybe she just wanted you to push some button to see if that's what you needed to do.
I don't think there's a pruning button. There it is. That's exactly what I was waiting for.
So I do have like a kind of a wildish perennial bed in my front yard that I established years ago with some seeds. And right now it's mostly rudbeckia and echinacea, milkweed, and Rudbeckia maxima, which is a really cool variety.
It's so cool. I planted it this year.
But it sends up the stalks, it blooms, and then
Poof.
and then you've just got the big stalk with no petals just sitting there. It's great seed forage, I guess, for goldfinches. But
Yeah.
when should those be cut back, or if at all?
I don't think you have to. I mean, if you're going for that rustic natural look, you could just let them flop.
Let 'em
But
stay. I let mine stay so they can reseed. And like you said, they feed the birds. I have so many little birds in my
the
garden
finches,
with those
the
seed
finches
heads.
will really jump on them. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
There's little bird
maybe
in
like
the
late
studio.
winter when they're done feeding.
yeah. I'm not, I can be a fan of like the late summer look. That's not really a problem
No.
with me, but I do know, okay, so these blooms are petering out. Is there any way to get any more blooms out of them, or is that just pretty much it?
I deadhead a lot of my flowering perennials and annuals, but now the Rutabacia maxima have not grown before, and I have been letting that just go to seed. Like you were talking
I'm
about,
scared
it's
to
really
cut
tall
mine
and it
because-
sticks
Well,
up.
if you kind of are making a decision, determining that there will be no reflowering when you allow it to go to seed because that energy is going towards seed
Right.
production. If you cut them back, I guess it's a possibility. I don't know about that cultivar specifically, whether it will reflower or not, but it's not uncommon. But it does require deadheading to keep that energy from being diverted to seed production.
You know, I will cut mine back. I will deadhead mine. Tyler, you leave yours up unless you want to switch and do it the other way around. And then in a few weeks, we'll let everybody know.
No, that's
Because I know
cool.
you're all sitting on the edge of
Yeah.
your seats wondering.
But this
what
is
is
year
it?
one.
And needles.
This is
year
first
one.
year, right, Tyler?
For the
for
maxima?
mine.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay. Those
first
things
year
should
for mine.
spread pretty good. So I was going to say you should eventually have
Well,
a little
I've-
field of flowers
I've
coming
got
up.
2 now.
Oh.
So-
And you planted one last year.
I planted one last year or the year before. So yeah, then now there's 2 side by side, 2 stalks. So maybe I should just like
They're good for
Clip
mass.
one.
break the
just
seed
see.
cluster and like let them reseed.
Let it go. I
Sprinkle.
love plants so much before those little birds get them. All right, so let's get back to some questions because we have quite a few today.
Yeah.
We had numerous bushes that had new growth in the spring, even some flowering. But soon after the new growth, a branch would turn brown and die. Any idea why this is happening?
I have seen a lot of this year. My first instinct is that we're getting a lot of late growth on these plants, and they're coming into a really hot season with fresh new growth where typically they're about a month or 2 earlier. And I saw a lot of plants flushing, right at the end of spring, about a month too late. And that new growth was so tender, it seemed to get hit by the heat and the sun, and it burned a lot of these plants, at least a majority of what I was seeing out there.
Interesting. That sounds like a sad thing to happen.
Now, apart from watering issues, but yeah, we're getting a lot of late new growth, and some of these plants just can't take that heat late in the season unless they've hardened off. So it's almost like you pruned too late is kind of the reaction they're getting.
Well, one thing,
hot
it's
for
never
everything.
too late.
What's that?
Is
is it?
Earth Mix Garden products.
Never.
Oh,
That's
never
the
too late
first
for
thing
that.
this should happen.
Anytime you're planting, or even if you're just wanting
Right.
to improve the state of the plants you've got, Earth Mix Garden products are always the right thing to do. Earth Mix Supernatural, for instance, it is a product that is not sold as a fertilizer.
No.
However, it is highly fertile. Your plants don't know it's not fertilizer. If you use that around them, it's a great organic source of feeding. Earth Mix Supernatural is in itself a great product, and it's also an input in several other Earth Mix products down the line, such as Earth Mix Garden and Earth Mix Proganics O. So if you're wanting to naturally feed your plants, it's a good way to think about doing it. Now, you may be planting some things now. Maybe you're planting indoor things. Caroline certainly would recommend Proganics I. No peat in any Earth Mix products. Therefore, you get no fungus gnats. You only get the very best growth out of them with a minimal amount of effort. If you are planting outdoor plants, Proganics O gives you all those same benefits. So no matter what your gardening need is, there's an Earth Mix product just for you. If you want to find Earth Mix garden products, go to earthmix.net and click on the Find Earth Mix tab. And once you're there, a map will come up that shows you all the pins around Middle Tennessee or across all of Tennessee, Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Ohio,
Alabama?
Northern Alabama, from Memphis out to Knoxville. So check all the locations out at earthmix.net. Just remember this: success in gardening begins at the ground level when you use EarthMix garden products. And we appreciate you giving us a moment to talk about that and help take the work out of your gardening. You know, it's hard enough this time of year when the weather is oppressively hot. You want every advantage you can get, and we certainly believe EarthMix gives you that.
Sure does.
Hey, y'all, we got a question about soils.
Soils.
Speaking of EarthMix, which of your bagged soils would you choose for a rose in a container?
I like using landscape for trees and shrubs in containers. Honestly, if you're going to do a shrub in a container, usually landscape is used as a conditioner, but it would do really good to kind of help a little extra nutrient and water in that container.
Yeah, and if you want something that is a little bit heavier, a little more moisture retentive, Proganics O will give you that benefit. It's similar to landscape, except it does actually have some native soil in it, so it is a little bit heavier and will give you a little more mileage on your water. So it really comes down to which side of that equation that you're on. Do you really need the drainage better, or is the moisture retention a greater asset for you?
Did it say what type of rose?
No, it did not. It
Okay.
just said a rose.
Well, a rose by any other name, Josh, would smell as sweet.
It does smell as sweet.
So, all right.
So, young crepe myrtle with single stem lost top limbs due to drought. Bark still green on trunk. Should I wait it out?
Yep.
I would strip any of those dead leaves that are crispy like a potato chip, and
Crispy like a potato chip.
make sure it gets well watered, good deep soaks for the rest of the summer. And if it stays green, they can push. The only worry, I guess, would be that fresh new growth getting a little bit singed. So you just have to really keep on that water, even though it looks like you're watering a stick.
Yeah, and you might take a time to scratch with your thumbnail or with something like a pocket knife to see if you indeed have green exposed underneath the bark. If you do not, you might want to go ahead and just cut that stem back and allow that, just get it out of the way, because if it's dead, it's not going to put out new growth.
If it's dead, it's dead. I had a few things
They're
after
hard
the
to kill,
deep
though.
freeze that
Oh yes,
Yeah.
they've come back really, really well this year.
that would
about that.
scratch green, and it never flushed back out. My Yuletide camellia, I thought was going to come out. It kept scratching it, kept scratching it, kept scratching green, and up until about 2 weeks ago, it finally stopped. And I mean, it was green. It was
Now, did you
greener
get-
than it was in the
did
winter.
you get any basal breaks right at the ground level, even? Because I've gotten some out of my
Nothing.
My April remembered camellias have flushed out at the very base.
That was my April as well. Those came out at the base, but the Yuletide didn't, but it was scratching
Well,
green just like those.
Okay, well, of course, a Yuletide is a Sasanqua camellia, which is,
Sure it is.
it's only a zone 7 hardy, and
Yeah.
we had about a zone 5 freeze, and therefore, they were beyond the hardiness. Whereas the April remembered are a good zone 6A hardy,
Yep.
so
Yeah.
they were able to take severe damage and still recover.
I was sad to have lost that one, though. And then my osmanthus, I transplanted it, came up from the ground level. Then my lawn guy mowed them all down.
Well,
I didn't flag them, so it's kind of on me.
our osmanthus.
Some guy that mows grass, as Jim used to call it.
We've got our osmanthus in a bed area, so
you do?
we just had to cut them back, and they've really come back extremely well. So there's
And they
quite
look healthy
there's
like that.
a number of things. I still talk to a lot of folks who are in a quandary about their boxwoods, and within
There's
the
some
next
new ones out there behind the green room out here. I saw. Some really cool looking ones out there.
we do have a good selection, but there are a lot of people who are trying to figure out, should they hang with them for a while, or should they go ahead and relieve them from their misery?
I sure wish my across the street neighbor would go ahead and just yank 'em.
whether somebody wants to replant them now or not, and I may be jumping on a question that's being asked, I really, at this stage of the game, if it really does not look good to you, they're going to look a lot better just getting them out of there. Whether you
Yes.
plant anything back in the spot or not, it'll look a lot better getting that dead thing out of there. Then you can look at it for a while like that and decide what you want to do. Maybe you plant a smaller one back in there. Boxwoods are expensive.
Yes.
They
they
grow
are.
very slowly, so
Yes.
you might consider planting something that's few sizes smaller than what you had, something more like it was when it was likely planted.
When it was a little baby.
Yeah,
Yeah,
back in the
Austin's waiting with
60s,
his
but-
dead ones.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
got.
I
okay.
think Austin's are just dead. So he's gonna
definitely
be he's
are.
gonna be waiting a while. All right, dead air.
Speaking of dead, sorry,
Dead?
Josh, I thought you were saying
No.
something. Okay, yeah.
I was thinking about it. I bet
Let's
they're
fill
pretty
that
good
silence
neighbors
with a
other than the
hydrangea
fact.
question. Best hydrangea variety for northeast side, blasted with morning sun, but shaded in the afternoon.
That sounds like I mean, you could almost grow any hydrangea
Yeah.
probably in that environment, really. That's a nice kind of environment for panicles, full sun, even down to the arborescens, the Annabelle hydrangeas. Those are also going to be a really good option. And oak leaf hydrangeas have been really popular this year. If you want to go for a native look, oak leaf hydrangea and even the pinks and the blues and purples, I think would like it there.
Yeah, the macrophyllus, the garden hydrangeas, it's about a perfect situation for them. So I agree with you. There's really not a bad choice.
Yeah.
They will all do well in that environment.
Yeah.
I have a oak leaf snow sickle that I planted last year in that same condition, and it is gorgeous. If you ever have the chance to plant that variety.
Is it cooling down your summer garden?
It is. It's crazy. There's just ice melting into all those plants. It's wild. Hey, y'all, we got another pruning question. Who's excited? Winecraft
Caroline.
smoke tree I cut back in the spring has grown. It says it's grown feet since. I'm assuming it's a lot of feet since.
Either that or it's a new species.
It's grown
that
feet.
actually
Oh
has
my
feet.
That's
gosh.
cool.
I thought that was a
Take a
southern
picture.
expression.
And they want to cut those feet off or cut back some of the multiple feet that it has grown. But they're wondering if they can cut that in this heat.
You can. I mean,
Could stay hydrated.
I like my smoke tree in a little bit of shade, so mine's a little bit protected. I'd cut it, and that tender new growth should be fine.
We've got one in a front bed, and Renee cuts on it all growing season.
Fairly tough.
Because
have one. I want
they
one.
do really grow fast, and you need to, once it's gotten of some size, if you don't cut it severely once a year, you will not be able to keep it in bounds. I mean,
Yes.
they really, they call it a smoke tree.
Tree.
It is a small tree, but it's still a vigorous grower. So it's a multi-trunk, very colorful,
Gorgeous
great,
in the
great
spring.
looking accent, very, very beautiful. But it'll get away from you if you don't stay at
It'll
it.
get a little scraggly,
Yeah,
a
they
little
get
rangy.
skanky at the bottom.
Yep.
I mean, another neighbor has those that needs to be worked on.
Did you say Renee keeps pruning it back? So what height is y'all's at? Because I want to plant one, and I don't have much
ours. She
experience with it.
probably keeps it somewhere between 4 and 6 feet.
Oh,
in
wow.
height.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
for a few days, you can cut those nice looking foliated limbs and use them in arrangements. And
Cool.
she does that frequently in the house. So it's a nice thing to do. Another little thing when you can, if you've got stuff. I was fortunate to be our good friend and customer Bobby Cudd, who's known by most of the music community here in Nashville. Bobby is an avid gardener, and he told me that he literally, I don't know if he did this past year, but his goal in gardening is to have something in flower 365 days a year. And he actually did achieve that
Oh,
a couple of years ago. Every single day there was something in bloom. So that's no small feat in a temperate climate like we're in. So
outside he had them.
outside, yes.
That's
So
amazing.
I said, yeah, I wish you had taken like every day a picture. That would
Yeah.
have made a really cool. So that's something. So kudos to Bobby for
Yeah,
that.
Bobby.
Yeah, that's. I want to see that garden. I wish
Me
he had done
too.
a little
He
time
has
lapse of
he
everything.
has zero grass, no grass at
Oh,
all. It's
wow.
all landscape, 100%.
What? And he still has it. This garden's
still
still going.
does, yep.
So
Yep.
he could document it this winter and
Yep,
send
yep.
in some photos if
Yeah.
he wanted
he's,
to.
He's, like everyone else, he's somewhat in recovery phase because we all got damage. Whether you're an avid horticulturalist or not, Mother Nature doesn't care.
Yes.
No, she does
So
not.
what was
gonna do
blooming
it.
during that freeze for him?
Violas and
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Okay.
Wow, impressive. Well,
Okay.
let's talk about butterfly bush, which we are featuring in the studio today.
We have them
They smell
front and center.
amazing. First time with butterfly bush. It's so big, but it's flopping over. Is that usual, or can I fix it?
If the
Mine's
blooms
floppy.
are pulling it down, and some of these blooms like pugster can get, they can get almost a foot. For a plant that's only a foot tall, the blooms can be a foot long. So once they turn all the way brown, if that bloom is pulling it down, I'd go ahead and snip it off. Don't worry about pruning on butterfly bush. It can take it. It can rebloom. If it's just foliage, you may wait and see and just trim it back over the winter. I tend to cut them back fairly hard from season to season just to stop that flopping.
Yeah, and many of the older cultivars of Budley are very aggressive growers, and so if you don't cut them back, you really can't keep them in bounds. I've got one called Miss Ruby, which is right over here behind me, and I contend, based on this, as many other examples, that whoever's in charge of these guys that call these colors, this is nothing ruby about that.
No.
It is so.
It's very magenta.
Very magenta, yes, and even I can see that with poor vision.
Even you
but
know.
I'm not in charge of assigning the names
purple,
of
man.
colors. They didn't call it Miss Magenta; they called it
Miss
Ruby.
Ruby,
So
but she is pretty.
We've got a question on Facebook from one of the good at homies, Joan Dotson. She says that she dug up some dogwoods that came up from seed in her yard, and they are in pots in mostly shade. When would be a good time to put them in the ground?
wait till fall now, wouldn't you,
Yeah.
Ben?
Yeah,
Or
I would.
3:30.
I mean, if they're already in a pot and you're able to take care of them in that container, I would leave them in that protected area. If this is a brand new plant for you and you're not used to take care of these in containers, I would maybe stick it in the ground. But yeah, if it's in that container, wait for a couple months, plant it.
Wait for a few months, stick it in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I do most of my planting in the fall. I know I talked about it a couple weeks ago, but I planted so many perennials in the fall and they exploded this spring. So I'm excited.
As exemplified in your flower beds webinar.
That is correct. Yes. If you haven't seen that webinar and you're interested in learning more about flower beds,
Who
check
hasn't seen
out.
it? But if you're happen to be one of those, you
One of those
definitely
few
need to
people.
check it out. It's a really Caroline did a wonderful job on that. So make
Thank
sure
you.
you see her seminar.
And there are examples of flower beds, so you'll get to see a lot of my garden beds and some that are out of control in that webinar. All right, speaking of flowers, let's talk about dahlias. My dahlias are not doing great. The leaves are wilted and browning. What do I do?
Dahlias. That's how mine are looking. This is my first year doing dahlias, and they came in with a scream in the spring, and I had dinner plate size blooms. I don't know what type you have, but the dinner plate ones, apparently, now that I know, are notorious for kind of petering out through the season. You get a big set of blooms, and then they tend to go brown. All that rain we had probably mushed up those blooms, but I'm just snipping them, about 6 inches down from the bloom before they get to like a node where they split, and then see if they throw on more blooms. And I would just get rid of that brown daily.
It
if you
is
have to.
true that
Yeah.
the pompon varieties are less susceptible to that stress in the heat for whatever reason. They just are. So if you're going to grow a lot of dahlias or dahlias,
Dahlias.
whichever tomato side of the equation you're on there,
Potato.
it's maybe a good idea to have a mixture of both. Those are actually one of the plants that my grandmother started growing.
Nanny.
That's part of the reason why we are here today is due to dahlias and
They started
geraniums.
tubers, though, don't they?
They do. And one of the things they don't like is staying
Wet.
too wet. Yes,
Yeah.
they will be very. They would be very reactionary
Squishy,
to
yeah.
wet feet. They will just die out completely. So
Not a fan.
Yep.
I planted some this year. I planted them close to a AC unit that,
Ooh.
drips, and they're not doing great. And that's probably why staying a little too wet. But they are pretty. They were pretty for a couple weeks, and then they kind of
Kind of like a peony,
petered
but
out.
late summer versus late spring. They kind of have their season, and then
And then they go. Well, speaking of peonies, when do you recommend cutting back peonies and adding bone meal?
okay, I would probably do that once they go dormant. Once the leaves start crashing, which should be probably
First frost.
maybe November, December. Whenever they turn brown and start laying over, go ahead and cut them off and give them that bone meal.
And give them that bone meal.
That's the secret. The
Perfect.
bone meal's the stuff. That's the bomb stuff for peonies?
Mine does fine without it.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
I
and
think
the
for
thing
a
about
younger one.
bone meal is a really good product for any, particularly for bulb type plants. But it's very slow to break down. So if
Right.
you apply it in the fall, you get the benefit the next spring. It takes it quite a long time to break down.
Okay.
But it's good. All right. How best to prune a fiddle leaf fig tree? Mine is 8 foot tall and leaning. So the best way to do it is to go ahead and do it now for one. So if you want to get that done before next year, you need to do it now because you are starting to get a little bit late into pruning those big indoor plants. So I would suggest cutting it back, not severely, but pretty far to leave room for plenty of new growth, so you're not going to have to do it again soon. They respond really, really well to being cut back. I have an Audrey ficus and a fiddle leaf fig that I actually cut on every year at my house. So I suggest figuring out where you want to cut it, whether it's the branches that are coming out from the main stem, if you do have a single stem lyrata, or just chopping it. To where it will start branching out, but make sure you get just above a node, which is going to be where those big leaves come out. I would say just half an inch above that, give it a good cut, or on those branches, same thing, cut it back, and then you should get it reflushing within a couple weeks. But like I said, you're going to want to do it now. I did one in September a few years back, and it took 6 months before any new growth happened.
Good sharp
It was
shears,
just a
too,
stick
right?
in a pot.
Yeah, and
Yes.
like many plants, particularly those that we treat as indoor plants, they're very reactive to day length. And once the days start getting shorter, and by the way, they already have.
Oh gosh, no.
But once we fall below about 10 and a half to 11 hours, that's when it really starts to impact them. So that's
Yeah.
one of the things to keep in mind when you're trimming those. There's a lot of things to keep in mind, Josh. With
And that's
regard-
the kind of knowledge that you get at Bates Nursery and Garden Center.
That's
David
right.
Bates.
We're very blessed to
Yes.
have an entire staff of horticulturalists. We do put on a good display here on Saturday mornings, myself excluded, with regards to horticultural acumen. Mine might be sketchy a little bit at this stage of the game, but others are not. And we invite you to come out and let us help you with your gardening things. And the thing that is most in my mind at the end of July is the need to get whatever trimming you're going to get done. Now, this is for your basic shrubs. We talked about it earlier in the show about really ought to avoid trimming azaleas right now. It's already a little late on those, but many of the things that are non-flowering, springtime flowering plants, you can go ahead and trim now for the final time. Specifically, broadleaf evergreens like boxwood and those kind of things. Or so you can trim those now and put your shears away, clean them real good, and put your
Yes.
shears away for the season, and you'll have that one off the list. So maybe you've gotten all that done. Maybe there are other things on your list you need to be considering. Well, come on out and see us. You can go out to the website, batesnursery.com, and everything we have for sale is out there online. You just go to the little hourglass right here, and you can search through there. We have all of our various categories across the top. You can click straight to any one of those. I'd love to have you subscribe to my newsletter.
Do it.
There's about 30,000 people in Middle Tennessee who are kind enough to subscribe to that, and a great many of them read it every week.
And you get little tips ahead of time for the weekend. So
Well,
because it comes out on Thursday afternoon.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, we're kind of in that
Once.
time of year where we're looking for special things to do. And this week, we're having a sale on our pottery and two of our soils that you would use in the pottery, the Proganics I and O. Those items are all 20% off.
That's
so
a fifth off.
that's a fifth off.
Wow.
So you can come out and take 20% off any and all container purchases and those two soil items, Proganics O and Proganics I in the bag. Come out and see us at Bates Nursery and Garden Center, where we've been beautifying Nashville since 1932. So we're very privileged to get to be a part of the Nashville community and to be helping you have success in all of your gardening efforts. So come out and see us. We're conveniently located 1 mile north of Briley Parkway at exit 19 on Whites Creek Pike. It's just minutes from Rivergate, Opry Mills, Nashville West, downtown Nashville. It's worth the drive, no matter where you're coming from.
Everywhere.
Bates Nursery and
everywhere.
Garden Center, beautifying Nashville since 1932.
Yeah.
Come see us. We look forward to having you out. Even on a hot day, we've got water available for you. So
You're charging for that water?
No, that's water is
That's
no
free
charge.
water?
It's free water.
Wow.
So come on out here and see what we got going on. We've got a front parking lot that's a mess right now, but
That's okay. There's
but it's
plenty
going to
out of
be a lot better.
Well, part of what's going on is
What's in room with Caroline?
Uh-oh.
What's in the room?
It's time to talk about what's in room. So right in front of us, we have Frosty Fire dianthus. So I planted dianthus in the fall, like I talked about earlier. I planted some perennials in the fall. I decided just to try one little 4P because I'd never grown it before. I wasn't sure how it would do.
They're really a nice plant.
I love it. I planted Fire Witch, which is a little bit lighter pink in the bloom than this one. But it looks fantastic. It's clean. It bloomed in the spring, and now it's just got this nice little kind of ground cover silvery green look. And so far, I'm really happy with it, and I'm going to plant more in the spring. Somebody tried to talk me out of it, who's not in this room today, but so I'm not going to mention any names. But
Kevin?
Austin.
Austin Kevin did. But I'm really happy I planted it, and I'm a big fan. So we talked about butterfly bush a little while ago. We have that in here today. It's pink cascade on our side. So it's got this pretty little, like I would say baby girl pink color. Really, really pretty, and again, smells amazing.
It's
and then
Barbie pink.
Oh my gosh, I did a Barbie theme on this
Yes.
side of the room.
Yeah.
And then right behind it, as Ben is showing off, we've got all summer peach Weigelia. And I have never planted this
I like that
before, but I
color.
think I'm going to
Weigelia, you ask?
try it. Good one, David. Good one right there. So we see these little pink blooms that Ben is showing off. There we go.
I've got a
Are we
shot
on-
of the ones.
Are we on my side now?
I'm on your
There's-
side.
There's my
They're showing up a little
hand.
better over there.
So I don't know if anyone in this room has grown these before.
That's
I
cool.
haven't, and I'm going to give them a try. I'm going to plant them around a witch hazel that I planted in the fall.
Which hazel would that be?
See, it's just one of those hazels. I don't know yet because it's a new planting. And then on your side of the room, I brought in totem pole switchgrass, which I planted
Love it. I've
earlier
got
this
that.
And
spring, and
Bridget
I brought it for
is
Ben.
proud of you for doing that
Yes.
because she is our resident grass expert, and those really are a wonderful fastigate form of
Don't
an ornamental
use
grass.
bad words.
I'll say what I want to,
I
Josh.
understand.
Fastigate simply is a horticultural term, and it means it's upright and columnar.
Oh.
And Ben loves this grass. So he talked me into getting it. I don't know if he realized he did, but he said so many things about totem pole. It gets so big, it's so clean. I love it. He planted it, and we got some small 1 gallons in. I said, you know what? I'm a sucker for plants. I'm
And
going to
in
go
the
ahead and
fall,
buy 3.
in the fall season, once they have dried and the wind blows, they're really a graceful
Dancing in the
element.
breeze.
Yes, they are.
We've
I'm
got some
quite
eight
excited.
foot windows on our house, and they just barely get below those windows, and you can see the seed heads kind of dancing out the windows. So it's a
Look at you
nice,
go.
nice effect.
Beautiful.
So
Yeah.
fancy. And then we had already talked about Miss Ruby, butterfly bush that's right back there. And then right in front of you guys, we have another another butterfly bush. It is Violet Cascade. So in front of y'all, right in front of Tyler, in front of all of his fancy equipment, it's more of a purple color. So we have the pink over here. You guys have the purple over there. In front of that, we've got some Sun Sparkler, Firecracker Stone Crop.
Cool.
So if you want a low ground cover, if you're into that succulent look, that would be a good addition to like a full sun rock bed.
Easy summertime planting.
Easy summertime planting. Yeah, good drought resistant. I mean, it's hot right now. So that's going to be one of the plants that will be thriving in your beds. And then right in front of that is a hardy plumbago.
Yep. Serratistigma.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, you can't see it too much, but it's got some really pretty blue flowers. There it is.
They're
I was
one-
paying attention.
They are
Caroline,
one
but
of
what
those
is this
plants
one
that
again?
really draw you in because the color is not huge and showy, but if in a planter or something where you're close to the patio, they're not a 55 mile an hour driving down the highway kind of splash of color. They're stop and
Stop
ponder
and enjoy
upon
it.
Yes.
Think about it. It's hardy plumbago, Josh, is what that one is.
Plumbago, okay.
And I think that one likes a little bit of shade, so you don't want to stick that in full sun. But those are our plants that are in the green room today. So thanks for going on this little tour with me, and let's get back to some questions.
All right.
Because we still have a few. So we're going to take a jump into vegetable gardening. We have a few
Vegetables.
questions about tomatoes. Do you know why my cherry tomatoes aren't turning red? Well, mine sat green for a really long time, and just in the last 2 weeks, they started to turn yellow and red. and I'm just now starting to get a really, really full harvest. But Ben, you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, usually time. Maybe
They were late
sun
this
exposure. I mean, sun exposure could probably, if they're not in full sun, I could see that slowing down their ripening
It
process.
absolutely does.
Some tomatoes do take a little while, and not typically cherry tomatoes, but I did do.
I've been harvesting for 2 months.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
my yellow ones, the orange ones, yellow ones, those come in pretty quick. But I think they're like black watermelon or something like that. Those took a long time.
Yeah.
They've
Yeah,
got tough skins.
I find the larger tomatoes, are, at least in my garden bed, I've only gotten 2. I've gotten 2 Cherokee purples. I have tons of green tomatoes on the vine, but I know it's just a matter of time. They will be turning red very soon.
Yeah, and the more fruit that you have hanging on there, and cherry tomatoes are really heavy fruit producers, the longer it takes for them to begin to ripen because there's a lot of energy being spread
Right.
around to a lot of fruit. So if you really are antsy about it, you can go ahead and start picking some of the bigger ones and letting them lay over to the side, and they'll be ripe in a week.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, you'll be surprised. You'll wake up one
but
day and
if
be
you
like,
want them to be as sweet as they can be, just leave them on
Leave
there
as
and be
long
patient.
as you possibly
I bet
can.
you'll go out there one day and they'll all start changing color. I
Yeah.
mean, it'll probably
Quickly.
be.
and then you'll have too many tomatoes. That's my problem right now. How often do we fertilize fruit and veggies throughout the growing season?
I usually give them a mid-season boost with Supernatural. It's usually what I use. Earthworm castings you could use also as a little boost.
Mix.
But I'll usually do it midway through the summer, so I just got done doing a little boost. And then, of course, in the spring when I plant.
Perfect. And finally, Austin said a while ago that cilantro would do well in the fall. When do you start cilantro seeds for fall harvest?
I would think starting seeds soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
real soon.
Yeah.
Get them in the ground maybe mid-September, I would think, just depending on how the heat is.
Yeah, and fall seed starting is a lot more challenging than
Really?
the winter springtime cycle because most of these plants, I mean, by nature, they're a cool season plant. So when the weather's so hot, they can get spindly, they can flop on you, or they can prematurely bolt if your timing is not good. So it's a lot more touchy. Cilantro is not as bad as, say, other things like
Dill.
broccoli and Brussels sprouts and those kinds of things that are
Yeah.
straight up cool weather plants. But
Yeah.
it is a challenge. Much of it has to do with the weather, and a lot of that we don't have control over.
Nope.
No, we don't.
Maybe do a couple rounds of seeds. Is not
That's
a bad idea.
I think that's maybe a couple of weeks apart on start time is really a good way to do that. So yes,
Yeah.
kind of hedge your bet a little bit.
I'm ready for fall veggie gardening. I know it's soon, but I'm getting ready, getting excited.
We've got a trimming and boxwood question on Facebook.
Oh,
Samsara is asking, or stating that she trimmed her boxwood, or Samsara looks like a lady. I haven't got there. But she trimmed the boxwoods with an electric trimmer a couple of weeks ago, and the tops turned brown. Is that normal?
Yeah, I mean, the quality of the cut is going to affect the brown of the plants. So I would bet if you zoom in on those leaves, they probably got a good
Squishing?
beaten by that electric. That electric trimmer, if it's not really sharp, and they're very hard to
They
sharpen.
mash them.
It's just you're just kind of hitting those leaves, and they're going to turn brown everywhere they got a rough cut. So you may consider getting a pair of just shears that you can keep sharp. If it's not a huge boxwood,
Right.
you can get a lot cleaner cut. They will grow out of that damage, though. Yeah, probably in a few weeks.
A lot of
Okay.
folks like to put WD-40 on their electric trimmer too.
There's that-
Wipe it off before you start.
Yeah.
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 I mean, and I used to. We had 2-cycle shears back in the day when we used to do a lot of growing. My favorite mixture was take a little pump up spray bottle and mix it about half and half with diesel fuel.
Oh yeah, man.
And some lightweight oil, and that will cut that sappiness. Which when you get that on the bed knives, it starts really reducing how well and how efficiently the blades cut. You'll notice if they're hand shears, you can tell when they're not really acting properly. You're having to force them together and pull them apart instead of them flowing nicely. So if you'll keep them clean, and then as Ben said, make sure you wipe them off before you start. That will really eliminate your damage issues. But cleaning them frequently and wiping them off is very important.
Another one real quick from Facebook, Mike Marcello. This is the best show ever. I have used so many of your tips. I do have a question about my garden. What kind of fertilizer should I use to yield more zucchini? I love to fry up some zucchini and destroy my friend Carl's anal sphincter with zucchini.
Well, I don't know about that
We don't
execution of it. I'm not
okay.
I've not ever heard it put quite that way, but we'll just concentrate on the horticultural side or agricultural side in this case. Squash in general, they'll do one of two things. They'll either do extremely well, or you can have problems with them. And squash vine borers attack all squash plants, zucchini, crookneck, straight neck, any of them. So keeping that away is the best thing to do. The other thing is use a good organic fertilizer. Ben talked about Supernatural, which is a great organic compost that's highly fertile, not sold as a fertilizer, but your plants can't tell that. Or use Espoma Plantone, which is another really good organic fertilizer that your plants will get the nutrition they need, but it won't blast them with a lot of what we refer to as ammoniacal nitrogen. That's just ammonium nitrate.
That's crazy stuff.
Since it is an organic fertilizer, it does not have ammonium nitrate in it. It's slower release forms of it. So you don't get that blast, and you don't have to worry about the burn.
Perfect.
So there you go.
My squash is doing great right now. Probably the best I've ever had squash do. So just a little side note. Just wanted to brag. Tyler, did you have something to say? You took a deep breath.
Yeah. Sam actually sent us a question via our email, and I missed it last week. So sorry. Apologies, Sam. He's talking about his peach tree. His tree has prolific yields, but the bugs often get to it before I'm able to eat them. I'm wondering if organza bags would work to stop bugs. They help on my dahlias, and you have any advice? Thank you and hello.
I think that's a great. I mean, that's a great option. I mean, there's not a lot of bugs love peaches.
Oh boy.
And
Who does it right?
Yeah, right. If you have a good organic peach, you're probably going to find a worm occasionally, or some bugs, or
even the
something.
Allman Brothers love peaches.
Yeah.
They made an album, man. Eat a peach.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bags. I mean, that's what a lot of orchard growers. And if those peaches, if you're getting good crops, and you can, take the time to bag them, it's kind of foolproof. That's how you're going to get orchard
This is a
quality.
cloth? An organza cloth?
I believe it's like a fruit bag, or like a bloom bag, like a mesh that
You
you
could
put
take a
over that.
small paper bag, like a little sandwich size bag. You could do those. The difficulty with those is that the paper is a little bit stiff, and if you have a lot of rains, it can dissolve. on
David's
you.
having a Mike Pence moment over here.
Yeah, I've got a fly that is messing
Attractive.
with me.
Okay.
So anyway,
I thought we got all those flies.
all but
We
one.
must
but
have
one.
missed one. All right, we've got just a couple more questions.
Hey, by the way, we're
going
to show our duck.
Yes.
David wants to show his duck.
We have
Yes.
well, it's not my duck.
Where
I think
is the
it's
duck?
its own duck. But
Okay.
anyway, this is is it a merganza? Is
That's
that
what we think we are.
Yeah, and this is a visitor.
Oh,
Yeah, this is
Duck.
I think they named him Magnolia.
Magnolia.
That's what I hear.
Oh.
Okay, well, I think that's the name, but the species of the duck is merganza. Anyway, we think it's visiting from down the road, and maybe he's decided that he likes the nursery environment. I don't know. There are neighbors.
The new nursery duck?
Well,
You have to call it Bella then, don't you?
No, we
Do we
don't
have a duck video?
Yeah, here's my little. This morning in the perennials, the water was sprinkling, and
Oh my gosh.
who was sitting there? But our little friend Magnolia.
He was talking to David.
So,
Oh, I'm so excited about this duck. I didn't know he had gotten off the tree lot.
Yeah, that was this
Okay.
morning. Well, because we had the sprinklers on, and he said, "Hey, I never miss a good shot."
I'm going to walk this way.
Probably
you
waiting for
go.
the worms.
Yep.
Waiting for the worms. All right, indoor plant recommendations that might help with mold. So my top 3 would be just air purifying plants. They're going to help you a little bit with that. And fun fact, they are the most easy care house plants, or some of the most easy care. So snake plant, Sansevieria mother-in-law tongue, That's going to be one plant known by 3 different names. That one's going to be a good one. Peace lily, spathiphyllum, is also going to be a great addition to your home. And then spider plant.
Spider.
Yeah, the ones you see in hanging baskets that grow out. They're the white and green leaves, and they've got the little baby pups that grow from them. They're all low light plants, and I would say very easy care. And that's going to help filter out, purify the air in your home, and that'll help you a little bit with that mold. But if you have a bad mold problem, I mean, you might want to go with something a little more intense than just adding houseplants to your
Opening the
environment.
windows, turn on your fans in your kitchen.
I'll
turn
tell you
on
what,
your fans.
it
in
would
the
have to be pretty
bathroom.
bad mold right now to
Yes.
open the windows. And I think I'll wait a week or
Yeah.
You
two.
can open them at night. That's the same
A
thing.
little on the muggy side right now. So
We got
anyway.
one more question coming in
Okay.
from Miriam, so I want to get to this.
Hi,
Good morning,
Miriam.
Miriam. Do mature trees need watering right now? How much and how often?
I usually don't unless I see it severely flagging, which when we say flagging, we're talking about the leaves hanging like a white flag, like they're about to give up. Even then, sometimes a really mature tree, I don't know how much you could possibly do to help that out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and things like cherry trees, for instance, they're notoriously bad about
Yes.
weepy.
well, they'll just defoliate in
Yeah.
August. So next week they could drop all the leaves on them. It's not that unusual, and it's really not about the amount of water. It's just about they defoliate.
They get an attitude.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. I have a big
gets
tulip
sassy.
poplar that does it all the time, and it's so big, I don't think I could help the situation. I just hope for
Let it
rain.
go.
Yeah.
Well, we've had pretty good rains to
Yes,
this
we
part,
have.
and we'll likely have more. So, speaking of more, why don't we try this again next week? What do
Okay,
you
I'm
say?
coming back. Is
Well,
that
good.
okay with
Well,
you?
we hope all of you will as well.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you. Anybody else who wants to bring gifts from their garden, we'll take them. Yes,
right.
we will.
That's how we roll.
That's how we roll. Hey, this is the At Home Show. Comes to you every Saturday morning at 8 Central Daylight Time.
Or
currently.
anytime you wanna watch it.
Anytime. You can watch it all the time. But for everybody here, all the At Homies, we thank you for participating. And we'll see you here from the Green Room at Bates Nursery and Garden Center.